I wasn't born into love. I wasn't the daughter they cherished. And when I lost the only man who truly loved me, my parents didn't comfort me. They came for his money. I've been betrayed, broken, and left to raise my son alone. But what they never expected was that the woman they ignored would rise from the ashes they left behind. If you want to hear how it all happened, how I turned pain into power, then don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Because some stories don't ask for your attention. They demand it. Hi, my name is Julia Stone, and I'm 32 years old. If you had met me just a year ago, you would have seen a woman who felt like she had everything she'd ever wanted: a loving husband, a bright and kind-hearted 10-year-old son, and a simple, peaceful life in a modest neighborhood just outside Chicago. My husband Jason and I met during our sophomore year at Northwestern University. I was struggling through a grueling corporate finance course, and he was the charming and endlessly patient teaching assistant who stayed after class to help me understand capital depreciation curves. I think I fell in love with his kindness before I even realized what was happening. He had this quiet confidence, a way of listening that made you feel like the only person in the room. And when he laughed, when those green eyes crinkled at the corners, you forgot about everything else. I certainly did. We dated throughout college, each year bringing us closer, not just romantically, but as best friends. Jason proposed to me on graduation day. He tucked the ring inside my diploma case, and as soon as I opened it, he dropped to one knee right there on the lawn. I remember crying and laughing at the same time as a crowd of students clapped around us. We got married the summer after, at just 23 years old. Some people said we were too young, that we should explore life more before settling down. But Jason was the life I wanted to explore. There was no one else I wanted to grow with. After college, he pursued a career in civil engineering, eventually landing a job at a well-known urban development firm. Jason wasn't just good at his job, he was passionate. He loved designing things that made cities safer, more efficient, more beautiful. I used to joke that he was secretly a city superhero, saving lives with sidewalks and smart drainage systems. He would just laugh and say, "Someone's got to think about these things." I started working as an office manager at a mid-sized architectural firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady and flexible, which allowed me to support Jason's long hours while maintaining some balance in our home. We lived within our means, spent weekends going on hikes or watching documentaries, and shared quiet dinners filled with laughter, dreams, and the occasional ridiculous debate about which pizza topping was superior. He believed pineapple belonged on pizza. I didn't. It was our longest-running battle. For 5 years, we enjoyed married life, just the two of us. Then came the decision to try for a child. We assumed it would be simple. It wasn't. Our journey to becoming parents was anything but easy. The first miscarriage shattered us. The second left a scar I wasn't sure would ever heal. There were months of silence, moments where we questioned if we were strong enough to keep going. I remember sitting on the bathroom floor after our failed IVF attempt, the test in my hand, and Jason just holding me as I wept. He didn't say anything, he didn't have to. His arms around me said it all. "We'll get through this." We started to discuss adoption. We even attended an informational session. And just when we began to accept that our family would form differently than we'd imagined, I got pregnant. It felt unreal. I was terrified. Every twinge, every ache sent me spiraling. My OB put me on bed rest for the final trimester due to high blood pressure. Jason transitioned to remote work without complaint. He brought me breakfast in bed, massaged my swollen feet, and read aloud from baby books like he was prepping for a test. I would lie there, watching him read to my growing belly, and think, this man was made to be a father. And he truly was. Liam came into our lives one rainy March morning, and the moment Jason held him, he cried harder than I did. "He's so small," he whispered, as if afraid he'd break him. From that day on, Jason was a devoted father. He changed diapers without hesitation, learned how to braid hair for dress-up days at preschool, and made it a point to be there for every doctor appointment, school performance, and soccer game, even if he didn't understand soccer at all. Jason made being a dad look effortless, though I knew how hard he worked. He watched YouTube tutorials at night to learn the rules of soccer so he could coach Liam's team. He filled our family calendar with color-coded reminders of Liam's activities and scheduled his meetings around them. He was the dad who showed up, not just physically, but emotionally. He showed up in all the little ways that truly mattered. Our house was always filled with joy. Not the loud, chaotic kind, but the kind where bedtime stories ended in group laughter, where Sunday mornings meant pancakes shaped like dinosaurs, and where Liam would fall asleep on the couch with his head in Jason's lap while they watched animated movies for the 100th time. We weren't rich, but we were rich in all the ways that counted. There were warning signs, though. Jason had been complaining off and on about fatigue. He'd get lightheaded after long days, sometimes short of breath. We both brushed it off. Stress, he'd say. Too much screen time. A doctor once mentioned slightly elevated blood pressure, but nothing alarming. Exercise more. Watch your salt. You're in your 30s now, he had joked. It was standard advice we didn't take seriously enough. But none of that mattered, because that's not what took him from us. What happened wasn't something either of us could have prepared for. There was no warning, no second chance. Just one ordinary day that turned into the last day of our lives as we knew them. And that day started just like any other. It was a Tuesday. Nothing about the morning hinted at the catastrophe waiting ahead. Jason was up early, flipping pancakes in dinosaur shapes for Liam, his specialty. Liam sat at the kitchen counter, kicking his legs and laughing as Jason narrated each pancake, like a zoo tour. I was packing Liam's lunch and sipping coffee, completely unaware that this would be the last normal morning we'd ever share. Jason kissed me on the cheek, tousled Liam's hair, and said, "Remember, big guy, after school, we're going to the hardware store. You're helping me pick paint for the shed." Liam cheered. I smiled. It was just another perfectly ordinary day. Jason grabbed his backpack, slung his jacket over one shoulder, and headed out the door. He paused to say something. "Oh, don't forget to grab more maple syrup. The real stuff. Not that corn syrup garbage." I rolled my eyes. "Yes, maple syrup snob. Got it." He grinned, waved, and walked out. That was the last time I saw my husband alive. At 5:42 p.m., my phone rang. I was in the middle of sorting laundry and almost didn't hear it. When I picked it up, the screen read, "Unknown number." I hesitated but answered. "Hello." The voice on the other end was trembling. "Mrs. Stone?" "Julia Stone." "Yes, who is this?" "This is Officer Daniels with the Chicago Police. There's been an accident involving your husband, Jason Stone." My heart stopped. "Is he okay?" "I'm very sorry, ma'am. He was struck by a speeding vehicle while crossing near 53rd and Lexington. He was leaving his worksite. The paramedics did everything they could. He was pronounced dead at the scene." I don't remember screaming, though I know I did. The phone slipped from my hands and clattered to the floor. My knees buckled. I couldn't breathe. It felt like my entire chest collapsed inward. The walls of our laundry room closed in on me, and the air disappeared. Jason was gone? Just like that? I called my neighbor Ellen in hysterics, begging her to pick up Liam from soccer practice. She didn't ask any questions, just said, "I'm on my way." Then I called Jason's brother Aaron, who was still in Japan. He answered groggily, the time difference not yet in sync with the horror I was unleashing on his world. He cried over the phone with me. We didn't speak much. There were no words to bridge a moment like that. I drove to the city morgue alone. I don't know how I made it there. I don't remember the roads, the traffic, the lights. I just remember walking into that sterile, too bright building and being led into a cold, quiet room. There, beneath a thin sheet, was my husband. His face looked peaceful. Too peaceful. Like he was just sleeping. I kept waiting for him to sit up, smile sheepishly, and say, okay, bad joke. I'm fine." But he didn't. I touched his cheek. It was still warm. His hair still smelled like his usual cedarwood shampoo. But his chest didn't rise. His fingers didn't curl around mine. The absence of life in someone you love is the loudest silence you'll ever hear. I didn't cry right away. It was too big. Too unreal. It felt like I had stepped out of time, and everything around me was happening to someone else. The medical examiner offered me a tissue, a clipboard, a list of next steps that included questions like cremation or burial, and preferred funeral home. Questions I wasn't ready to answer. I was supposed to be making dinner for my family, not deciding what suit my husband would wear in his casket. Somehow, I drove home. The house felt like a museum of memories. Jason's shoes were still by the door, his coffee cup still in the sink, his jacket hanging on the hook. The smell of pancakes still lingered faintly in the air. That's when it hit me. Liam. I had to tell my son. My 10-year-old son, who had just been laughing with his dad over pancake dinosaurs, who was waiting for Jason to take him to the hardware store, who didn't yet know that his world had shifted on an unthinkable axis. I sat on the couch for what felt like an eternity, trying to find the words. How do you destroy your child's innocence with a sentence? When Ellen brought Liam home, I met them at the door. She gave me a worried look. Liam ran inside excitedly. Where's Dad? He said we were going to pick the paint colors today. I couldn't speak. I just took his hand and led him to the couch. He looked up at me, confused. Mom? What's going on? Did something happen? I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced myself to look into his eyes, Jason's eyes. Sweetheart, I said, my voice trembling. Something very sad happened today. Daddy, he was in an accident. Liam blinked, his expression slowly shifting from curiosity to worry. Is he at the hospital? Can we go see him? I shook my head. It was very bad, baby. He didn't make it. What do you mean? He whispered. I mean, Daddy died today. For a moment, he just stared, like he didn't understand, like maybe I had misspoken. Then he broke. A sound came out of him that I will never forget for as long as I live. A wail, not of anger or fear, but of pure heartbreak. He threw himself into my arms, shaking, sobbing, begging. I want Dad. Please, I want Dad. Please bring him back. There was nothing I could do, nothing I could say. So I held him, and I cried with him. We sat on the living room floor, the two of us clinging to each other while the sun set outside and the world carried on, completely oblivious to the fact that ours had just ended. That night was the longest of my life. After hours of sobbing in my arms, Liam eventually cried himself to sleep in our bed, still clutching Jason's unwashed hoodie like a lifeline. I lay next to him, wide-eyed, staring at the ceiling, listening to his uneven breaths and soft whimpers in his sleep. I was numb, broken, and filled with a grief so physical it felt like a boulder was sitting on my chest. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to start. So I did the only thing that made sense at the time. I called my parents. It took me 3 tries before I had the courage to press call. My fingers trembled. My throat was raw from crying. But somehow, I thought hearing my mother's voice would bring me some comfort. After all, when you're broken, you call your mom, right? The phone rang. And rang. Finally, on the 5th ring, my mother picked up. Hello. I could hear laughter and music in the background. Clinking glasses. Loud conversation. Mom. I managed to say, my voice barely holding together. It's me, Julia. There was a pause then. Honey, is everything okay? We're in the middle of Vanessa's birthday dinner. Can I call you back in a bit? Her tone was light, distracted, as if I'd interrupted something minor. I swallowed hard. No, you can't call me back. The tears started again, burning this time. Jason, he died, Mom. He was hit by a car after work. He's gone. Another pause. I heard her cover the phone and say something muffled to someone else, probably my father or guests at the party. When she returned to the line, her voice had changed slightly, muted, more cautious, but still somehow detached. Oh, Julia, are you sure? I mean, maybe there's been a mistake. I saw his body, I said flatly. There's no mistake. Well, that's just such a shock, she replied. But honey, we got guests here, and the caterers just brought out the cake. Can you manage tonight? We'll come by tomorrow once things settle down. I stared at the wall. The words didn't make sense. Jason, my husband, Liam's father, was gone, and my mother was talking about cake. I just told you my husband is dead, I said slowly. Liam's father is dead. And you're at a party. You're being dramatic, she said quickly. We just don't want to make a scene in front of everyone. Tomorrow we'll... I have to go, I said and hung up before I completely lost it. Not even 5 minutes later, my father called. I let it go to voicemail. Then he called again. This time, I answered, expecting comfort. What I got was cold calculation. Julia, this is awful news, he said. Was Jason's life insurance policy up to date? That was his first question. Not how are you holding up? Not we're on our way. Not even what does Liam need? Life insurance. I don't even remember how I responded. I think I just sat there in silence, clutching the phone to my ear like it was a bomb. When I finally spoke, it was as if my soul had left my body. I can't believe this is your response. Well, sweetheart, he continued, tone condescending, you have to think practically now. There's a child involved. There are financial decisions to make. We'll talk tomorrow. I hung up again, this time without a word. After that call, I curled up on the bathroom floor with a towel over my mouth and sobbed so hard I thought I'd pass out. I didn't want Liam to hear me. He needed me to be strong. But inside, I was collapsing. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jason's face. Peaceful, still, wrong. I kept replaying our last conversation, the way he smiled when he mentioned maple syrup. Something so mundane, so normal. It felt cruel, almost, that our final words had been about breakfast condiments instead of something meaningful. But that was life, wasn't it? Never giving you the script you needed. The next morning came with no relief. The pain hadn't dulled. It had sharpened. I made Liam breakfast, though neither of us ate. He sat at the kitchen table with his eyes fixed on nothing, and I realized that for the first time in his life, my son looked old. Older than 10. Grief had aged him overnight. Calls and texts started pouring in, Jason's coworkers, college friends, even my old high school friend who saw the news online. People were kind. They asked if they could help, sent food, offered to babysit. Our neighbor Ellen brought over a casserole and just sat with me while I tried to make a list of people to notify. Strangers showed more empathy than my own family. I didn't hear from my parents the next day, or the day after. Eventually, my mother sent a brief text. We're thinking of you. Let us know when things calm down. Things didn't calm down. They fell apart. Funeral arrangements, paperwork, calls to Jason's firm, handling Liam's school notifications. It all came crashing down on my shoulders alone. Evelyn and Charles, Jason's parents, stepped in immediately. Evelyn arrived 2 days later, took over cooking, comforted Liam, and even handled the florist. Charles quietly booked the funeral home, contacted the cemetery, and coordinated logistics with calm efficiency. They were grieving too. Their son was gone. But they didn't disappear into their own pain. They met us inside ours. Aaron called me every night from Tokyo. He cried with me. He talked about Jason, about how much he admired him as a big brother. He told Liam stories over FaceTime that made him laugh, if only for a moment. My parents, meanwhile, remained quiet. When they finally called to ask about funeral details, it was to ask what time they should arrive, and whether it would be a traditional service or a celebration of life. Do you need help with anything?
No.
Is Liam okay?
No.
Can we do anything?
No.
They didn't ask any of those questions. They only asked if they should wear black. By the time the funeral came, I wasn't expecting them to show up early. But I had still hoped. I reserved front row seats for family. They texted 20 minutes before the service. Running late. Traffic. Be there soon. They walked in right as the organ began to play, whispering apologies as they found their seats, causing a slight commotion. My mother wore a bright shawl that smelled of heavy perfume. My father looked irritated, as if the whole ordeal had messed up his weekend schedule. Vanessa, my sister, scrolled through her phone throughout the service like she couldn't wait for it to be over. And I sat there, next to Liam, who was wearing a navy blue suit and clutching a photo of his dad, and I realized something that broke my heart a little deeper. My son had more emotional presence in that room than his own grandparents. The day of the funeral dawned clear and sunny. The kind of weather Jason loved: cool breeze, scattered clouds, sunlight soft on the skin. The irony of such beauty on the darkest day of our lives was not lost on me. I dressed Liam in the same navy suit he'd worn to his school's winter recital. Jason had helped him pick it out. "You look like a real gentleman," he'd said back then, straightening Liam's little tie with a proud smile.
Today, I did the same.
"Dad would want me to look sharp," Liam said quietly as I knelt to help with his collar. He looked in the mirror with Jason's reflection in his eyes, serious, brave, trying to hold himself together for me. I gave him a small, sad smile. "He'd be proud of you. So proud." Liam asked if he could wear his dad's watch. The one Jason always said he'd pass down when Liam was old enough. It was too big for his wrist, but I fastened it anyway. "He said I'd grow into it," Liam whispered. We arrived at the funeral home early to greet guests. I stood by the entrance, hands shaking slightly as people began to arrive. Jason's coworkers, college friends, even his high school soccer coach. One by one, they embraced me, offered words of comfort, then knelt to speak gently with Liam. "He used to talk about you all the time," one of Jason's colleagues told Liam. "Your dad loved being your coach. He was really proud of your science project," another said. "He brought it to work and showed us pictures." Liam listened silently, eyes glassy but focused. I could tell he was memorizing their words, trying to preserve pieces of his dad from each story. Jason had touched so many lives. It was obvious in the way these people cried openly, shared memories, and thanked me for letting them be part of his farewell. They weren't just attending, they were grieving. Honestly. Fully. And then my parents arrived.
Late.
Of course. As the seating music began, they slipped in through the back, whispering apologies and causing heads to turn. My mother, Barbara, wore a powder blue shawl and heels too loud for a funeral. My father, Martin, looked annoyed rather than sad, scanning the room as if expecting someone more important to be present. Vanessa trailed behind them, eyes glued to her phone, barely glancing at the floral arrangements or the photograph of Jason at the altar. They sat in the front row, seats I had reserved for family, not because they asked, not because they deserved it, but because I thought, somehow, they might show up differently. They didn't. During the service, Evelyn and Charles sat beside Liam and me. Evelyn kept a gentle hand on Liam's back, rubbing small, comforting circles. Charles sat tall and still, jaw clenched in grief, but his hand never left his grandson's shoulder. My mother dabbed at dry eyes with a tissue she didn't need. My father checked his watch more than once. Vanessa took a selfie when she thought no one was looking. As the eulogies began, I wasn't sure I could do it. My knees shook as I walked to the podium. My eyes fell on the casket, then on Liam, so small in his suit, holding Jason's photo in both hands. That's when I found my voice. "I don't know how to say goodbye to someone who is never supposed to leave this soon," I began. Jason was my partner, my best friend, the person who made burnt pancakes on Sunday and turned them into dinosaur-shaped masterpieces. He was the man who held my hand in every waiting room, who coached Liam's soccer team after watching YouTube tutorials for hours. He was the man who never missed a school event, who knew every page of every bedtime story by heart. I paused. My voice cracked. Evelyn reached out from the pew and took my hand for a moment. I looked at Liam again. He nodded, encouraging me with a strength far beyond his years. Jason hated cilantro. I continued with a small laugh. He was strangely passionate about maple syrup, only the real stuff. He believed in being early to everything, and he believed that love meant showing up. And he did. He showed up for me, for Liam, for everyone who ever needed him. I looked directly at my parents then. And now that he's gone, it's painfully clear who else does and doesn't. I stepped away from the podium. There was a pause. Then soft applause from a few close friends who knew exactly what I meant. The reception was held at our home. The place was filled with flowers, photographs, casseroles, and quiet sobs. Jason's college roommate told stories that made people laugh and cry at the same time. His coworkers helped set up tables and chairs. Our neighbor Ellen managed the food, letting me sit when I couldn't stand anymore. Meanwhile, my parents sat in the living room, accepting condolences as if they had lost something precious. Vanessa stood by the drink table, bored. At one point, I overheard Martin speaking to my Uncle James, loud enough that I wasn't sure if he wanted me to hear or just didn't care. Jason was on track to make partner. The life insurance alone must be substantial, plus the firm's retirement plan. Julia will be set for life. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. Even on the day we buried my husband, my father was counting dollar signs. Later, I cornered him in the kitchen. "You're talking about Jason like an investment, not a man." Martin shrugged. "I'm just saying, you'll be comfortable. You don't need to worry. I'm burying the love of my life, the father of my child, and you're making mental spreadsheets." Barbara walked in and caught the end of the conversation. "Martin, please. Today isn't the time." No, I wanted to scream. It never was the time for them. Not when I needed support. Not when Liam needed comfort. Not when Jason's absence left us bleeding in a room full of people. After most guests had left, Evelyn and Charles stayed behind to help clean up. Evelyn made Liam a plate of cookies and milk, then sat with him in his room to read. Charles vacuumed without being asked. They weren't trying to impress anyone, they were simply showing up. Aaron hadn't made it in time for the funeral. His flight from Tokyo had been delayed. But he called, tearful and apologetic. "I'm coming soon," he promised. "I'll stay for as long as you need. I want to be there for Liam." He was already more family than anyone who shared my DNA. That night, as Liam slept in Jason's shirt again, I sat at the foot of my bed and realized something profound. I wasn't just grieving the loss of my husband. I was grieving the illusion that I had a family who would stand by me in my darkest hour. 2 weeks passed. 2 long, aching, slow-moving weeks filled with paperwork, legal calls, Liam's sudden nightmares, and days that melted into one another like an endless fog. I was drowning in to-do lists no one should ever have to make. Canceling Jason's cell plan, closing joint accounts, updating the mortgage deed, and choosing whether to donate or box up the suits he'd worn so proudly. But I wasn't entirely alone. Aaron arrived from Tokyo 5 days after the funeral. Jet-lagged and pale, he went straight from the airport to the cemetery. Then he came to our home, hugged me for what felt like forever, and said nothing. That silence, comfortable and sincere, meant more than any apology or condolence card. "I'm staying a while," he said finally. I took leave. "I'll help however I can." And he did. He took Liam on walks, helped with dinner, even managed a smile out of my son one afternoon when they built a Lego set Jason had never gotten to finish. In contrast, I hadn't heard a word from my parents in over a week. And then, one afternoon, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw them standing on the porch. Barbara looked polished as always, checking her reflection in her compact. Martin was wearing a golf shirt, hands in his pockets, face unreadable. I opened the door slowly. "I didn't know you were coming," I said, not quite welcoming them in. "We thought we'd check in. See how you and Liam are doing," Barbara said, breezing past me into the living room. "Is Liam at school?" "He is." "Good," Martin added. "We wanted to speak privately." That should have been my first warning. They made themselves comfortable on the living room sofa, like guests expecting to be served. I found myself automatically putting water on the stove for tea before realizing I didn't want to serve them. I didn't even want them in my house. But I brought the mugs in anyway. My father examined the new sound system Jason had installed in his final month. Nice setup. Jason had good taste in electronics. He did. I replied quietly. The word had twisted like a knife. We made a few minutes of forced small talk. Liam's school, Barbara's garden club, how quiet the neighborhood was lately. But it was all preamble. I could feel it coming. Finally, Martin set his mug down on the table with a practiced sort of finality. "We wanted to talk to you about your situation." "My situation?" "Your financial situation," Barbara clarified gently. "Now that you're adjusting to life without Jason." I stared at them. "I'm managing." "Well, that's what we wanted to discuss," Martin continued. "Your mother and I are getting older, Julia. Our retirement fund took a hit in the last downturn. And healthcare isn't getting any cheaper. The implication landed before he said it. You're asking me for money, I said flatly. Barbara gave a small, embarrassed smile. Not asking. Just hoping you'd consider helping family. After all, we're your parents. We helped raise you. Supported your college tuition. Helped with your first house down payment. My mouth went dry. Jason wasn't even cold in the grave, and here they were, with their hands out. How much were you thinking? I asked, stunned but calm. Martin brightened, missing my tone entirely. Well, we were thinking something substantial would make sense. Perhaps 50% of the life insurance payout? That would secure our retirement and still leave plenty for you and Liam. 50% of the money my husband left behind. 50% of my son's security for their comfort. And 50% for Vanessa, too, Barbara added quickly, to help her get back on her feet with her art. You know how hard that field is. 65%. They wanted 65% of Jason's life insurance. I laughed, a hollow, shocked sound. You want 65% of the money Jason left for me and Liam? Martin leaned forward, businesslike. It's only fair. Family should help family. And you're not exactly struggling now. I stood up slowly. My hands were shaking. My voice somehow was not. My husband died. I didn't win the lottery. Don't be dramatic, he snapped. Jason knew his heart wasn't perfect. He should have taken better care of himself. You can't deny this money changes things. That was it. That sentence, that casual blame, that dismissal of Jason's death, ignited a fury in me that had been simmering since the funeral. Get out, I said, voice low but shaking with rage. Barbara blinked. Julia, be reasonable. Get out of my house. I screamed. They jumped. How dare you come here asking for Jason's money? How dare you reduce my grief, my son's loss, to a number? Jason was worth 100 of you. And you couldn't even bring yourselves to comfort me when he died. Martin's jaw clenched. We're only asking for what's fair. We deserve respect. You've earned none, I snapped. And you will never see a cent of Jason's money. You didn't earn it, you didn't deserve it, and you sure as hell won't take it from Liam. Barbara started to cry, whether from shame or strategy, I couldn't tell. We raised you. I stepped closer. Then you should know this. I'm not the scared daughter you used to bully. I'm a mother now. And no one gets between me and my son's future. They left in stunned silence, the door slamming shut behind them. I stood there for a long time, heart pounding, body shaking, tears welling, but not from sadness. From fury. From the betrayal of knowing that the people who were supposed to protect me had only come to profit from my loss. Later that day, when I picked Liam up from school, he seemed quiet. More than usual. Everything okay, buddy? I asked. He looked out the window. Why were Grandma and Grandpa at the house today? I glanced at him, surprised. How did you know? I saw their car from the classroom window. Did they bring anything? My heart sank. No, I said gently. They just came to talk to me about some adult things. Did they ask about Daddy's money? He asked suddenly. I stopped breathing. What makes you say that? I heard Grandpa at the funeral. He was talking to Uncle James. He said we'd get a lot of money because Daddy died. He paused. Is that true? I nodded slowly. Your daddy made sure we'd be okay. But no money will ever replace him. Liam thought for a moment. Then he said, I'd give all the money in the world just to have him back. I smiled through the tears. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Liam was quiet for the next 2 days. He still went to school, still did his homework, but his spark was dimmer. He was thinking.
Processing.
I recognized the look. I'd worn it myself for weeks. Then, one evening after dinner, he asked, Mom, can I use the computer? Of course, I said. Homework.
He shook his head.
I want to make something. For Grandpa and Grandma. I paused. What kind of something? Just something important. I'll show you when it's done. I watched him sit down at the desk with a level of focus that surprised me. 10 years old, and already carrying so much more than he should. That weekend, I received a voicemail from my father. We need to have a family meeting, Martin said, his tone clipped and commanding. Sunday at 2 o'clock. Bring Liam. No apology. No explanation. Just a demand. I nearly deleted it. But then I remembered Jason's letter. He'd warned me about this. He'd prepared for it. With a deep breath, I called Peter, our lawyer and Jason's closest friend, and told him everything. The meeting. The demands. The confrontation. Peter reassured me again, legally, my parents had no claim to Jason's estate. His will was airtight. The trust for Liam was protected. But if they try to guilt or manipulate you, Peter added, you have every right to shut it down. You're not obligated to listen. I know, I said. But I think I need to go. Not for them. For me. To end this clearly. He nodded. Then go. And don't hold back. Sunday came. Liam dressed himself without being asked, wearing the same little suit from the funeral. He carried a manila envelope in his hands like a treasure. You sure you want to come? I asked gently. He nodded. I need to. For Dad. We arrived at my parents' house, my childhood home. The place where birthdays were celebrated with cake for Vanessa and practical gifts for me. The place where expectations were heavier than love. When we walked in, the living room was filled. Vanessa, of course. Uncle James. Aunt Rita. Even a few cousins I hadn't seen in years. It was a full audience. My father stood up from his recliner, hands clasped like a judge beginning court. Thank you for coming, he said formally. We have important matters to discuss. I stayed standing, Liam close at my side. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of my son, I said firmly. Barbara frowned. Julia, this isn't really appropriate for a child. If it's not appropriate for him to hear, then it's not appropriate for you to say. Martin's jaw tightened. Let's get to the point, he said. As you know, your mother and I have supported you generously over the years. College, your wedding, your first home. I bit back the urge to list the discrepancies. How Vanessa's tuition to art school, which she never finished, cost double mine. How their help had come with strings attached. We believe, he continued, that given the substantial life insurance payout Jason left behind, it's only fair that some of that be redistributed to family. Specifically, to us and to Vanessa. I folded my arms. How much? He handed me a printed document. We've calculated a fair proposal. 50% to your mother and me. 15% to Vanessa. I glanced at the paper. They had actual dollar amounts listed. Vanessa looked smug. You want 65% of Jason's life insurance, I said slowly. Money meant to secure Liam's future. Martin nodded. You'll still have plenty. And family helps family. Barbara chimed in softly. And Vanessa is struggling. Her art career hasn't taken off, and she was very close to Jason. Vanessa looked up from her phone just long enough to say, he always said I had potential. I turned to her. Jason also said you never followed through on anything. That shut her up. Uncle James shifted uncomfortably. Aunt Rita looked at her shoes. My son, I said, lost his father. And all you can talk about is what you think you deserve. Martin stood, his voice rising. We're your parents. We fed you, clothed you, raised you. We deserve respect. You don't get respect just for biology, I snapped. You earn it by showing up. And you didn't. Not when Jason died. Not when Liam cried himself to sleep. Not once. Silence settled like dust. And then Liam stepped forward. He held out the envelope. I made something, he said clearly, hands shaking only slightly. For all of you. He pulled out a single sheet of paper and handed it to my father. Everyone leaned in to look. At the top, in Liam's careful handwriting, it read, Bill for real love and support. Below, a list. Being there when Dad died. $0, not provided. Helping Mom when she cried. $0, not provided. Asking me if I'm okay. $0, not provided. Being real grandparents. Priceless, but not paid. At the bottom, total owed. $0. Because you didn't earn any of it. The room went dead silent. My father's hands trembled as he held the paper. Barbara began to cry again. Vanessa looked genuinely stunned, for once. Liam stepped back beside me. "I thought you came here for money," he said quietly. "So, I made you a receipt." I wrapped my arm around him, tears in my eyes, not from pain this time, but from pride. "We're done here," I said. "Julia," Martin began, voice softer now. "This isn't how family should." "You're right," I said, cutting him off. "It's not."
But you made it this way.
"Don't contact us again unless it's to apologize and show actual change." I took Liam's hand, and we walked out the front door together. As I closed it behind us, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Relief. In the car, Liam was quiet. Then he said, "Do you think Dad would have liked the invoice?" I smiled through my tears. He would have framed it. The air in our home felt different after that day. Lighter. It wasn't that the grief had gone away. Jason's absence still lingered in the spaces he once filled. The left side of the bed, the chair at the dinner table, the voice that used to sing off-key in the shower. But the weight my parents had added to my sorrow? That was gone. I was finally able to focus on what mattered. Liam.
Us.
A few days later, while cleaning out the storage closet in our bedroom, I found something I hadn't expected. A sealed envelope with my name on it. Julia, written in Jason's unmistakable handwriting. Inside the envelope was a handwritten letter and a small flash drive. I sat on the edge of our bed, holding the letter as if it might burn me. My hands shook as I unfolded it and began to read. "My Jules, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it home.
I hate that.
I hate even writing this. But I also know life doesn't always give us warnings, and if something happens, I need you to know a few things. First, I love you. You and Liam are the best parts of my life. If I had to choose again, I'd choose you, every time. Second, I know how your parents are. I've seen the way they treat you. The way they look at Liam like he's an accessory instead of their grandson. If they come sniffing around for money, don't give them a cent. I set everything up to protect you and Liam. The trust is in Liam's name. You're the executor. No one else. Not even Aaron. I love my brother, but this is your domain. The flash drive has everything. Copies of the will. Insurance documents. Banking info. Passwords. It's all there. If you're ever unsure, call Peter. He knows where everything is and what to do. Lastly, Jules, you're stronger than you think. I've seen it. You've survived their rejection for years. You've built a life with me. You've raised our son with so much love and patience, even when you got none in return. They may have ignored you, underestimated you, but I never did. I believe in you. Always, Jason. I sat there for a long time, clutching the letter to my chest, sobbing into the fabric of his old t-shirt. It was like he had reached through time to hold me again. He had seen everything. Protected us before he was even gone. That night, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. Just as he said, it was all there, organized, labeled, perfectly structured. Jason had planned it all, down to a note that said, "In case of emotional sabotage, here's the clause Peter helped me at." He even had a section labeled Toxic Family Boundaries, enforced, that legally blocked anyone outside of the designated trustee list from touching the estate. I smiled through the tears. Of course he'd thought of that. The next morning, I took Liam out for breakfast. It was something Jason and he used to do on the first Saturday of every month, just the two of them. They called it Guy's Pancake Day. Now it was just the two of us. But I wanted Liam to feel that connection again. He ordered Jason's usual, blueberry pancakes with whipped cream and extra syrup. Midway through the meal, he looked up at me and said, "Mom, did Dad ever write anything for me?" I hesitated. I hadn't thought to look, but when we got home, I opened Jason's work laptop, the one I hadn't touched since the accident. I searched through his documents, his email drafts, his folders. And then I found it. A file titled for Liam, "Open When You Miss Me." It was a video. I hesitated only for a moment, then called Liam into the living room. We sat on the couch and I opened the file. Jason appeared on the screen, smiling. It was recorded just a few months earlier. He looked healthy, happy, full of life. "Hey, buddy," Jason said, waving. "If you're watching this, it means I'm not around anymore. And that really sucks.
I'm sorry.
I wanted to be there for everything, your birthdays, your soccer games, even your science fairs, even though I never understood how volcanoes worked without lava. He chuckled. Liam leaned against me, his eyes wide. But here's the thing, kiddo. Just because I'm not there doesn't mean I'm not proud of you. You're my son. And that means you're brave. You're smart. You've got your mom's heart and, hopefully, not my dance moves. Liam laughed. I did too. Listen to your mom. She's the strongest person I've ever known. She stood up when others walked away. She loved me when I didn't deserve it. And she'll always fight for you. Always. Jason paused, his voice softening. Whenever you miss me, just do something we used to do. Make pancakes. Go for a walk. Or look up at the stars and remember, I'm proud of you. I love you. Forever. When the video ended, Liam turned into me and cried silently. I miss him so much, he whispered. I know, I said, holding him tightly. I do too. But he's still with us. In everything we do. That week, with Jason's letter as my guide and the documents on the flash drive, I took full control of our financial future. I worked with Peter to transfer the estate into the trust, started a savings account for Liam's college, and even looked into therapy options for both of us. Aaron extended his stay to help around the house and be a male role model for Liam, which Liam appreciated more than he could say. But most of all, I felt something shifting inside me.
Power.
For the first time in years, I wasn't second-guessing myself. I wasn't waiting for validation from people who only ever showed up to take. I was becoming the woman Jason believed I could be. And I was determined to build a life Liam would feel proud of, one rooted not in wealth, but in resilience. The days turned into weeks, and slowly, our life began to reshape itself. Not back to what it was, because it could never be that again, but into something new. Something that honored what we had lost, while finding purpose in what we still had. One morning, I stood in front of the mirror, brushing my hair with the same motions as always, when I suddenly caught my own reflection and paused. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Not because she looked different, but because she finally looked like she belonged to herself. There was no more asking permission to exist. No more shrinking into spaces too small for her worth. I had faced death, betrayal, and the cold absence of love from those who were supposed to protect me, and I was still here. More than that, I was alive. With the trust Jason had set up for Liam secured, I decided it was time to rebuild not just our finances, but our future. I had once worked part-time at a local clinic as an admin assistant while Jason handled most of our financial load. But now I needed more than just income. I needed independence, direction,
Growth.
and so, with Peter's guidance and Evelyn's help watching Liam after school, I went back to school part-time for medical billing and office management. It wasn't glamorous, but it was something I could do. Something I was good at. Something that gave me control. My parents didn't know. I didn't tell them. After the invoice meeting, they tried to call a few times, but I didn't answer. Vanessa sent a long, self-pitying email about how I'd torn the family apart and how Jason would have wanted us to stay united. I didn't reply. Jason had already said what mattered. He believed in me. That was all I needed. Aaron moved into the guest room for a few months and became more like an uncle than a traditional in-law. He helped Liam with homework, taught him how to ride a bike without training wheels, and took him camping one weekend when I had exams. Sometimes I caught Aaron staring at Jason's photo on the wall with a bittersweet smile. He'd be proud of you, Aaron said to me once, as we washed dishes side by side. I nodded. I hope so. He would, he repeated. He is. By spring, I had finished my certificate and landed a full-time job at a private medical practice. The hours were stable. The pay was steady. It wasn't the kind of thing people made movies about, but for me and Liam, it was freedom. And Liam, God, he was growing so fast. He was 10 going on 40, quiet, observant, kind in ways that broke your heart and healed it at the same time. He kept a photo of Jason in his backpack and would whisper hi to it before school each morning. But he was smiling again, laughing again, living again. One afternoon, as we sat in the park eating ice cream after school, he asked, "Do you think I'll forget him?" It was the question I'd feared for months. "No," I said firmly. "You'll remember him differently as you grow up. But you'll never forget him. He's part of you." Liam nodded. "Sometimes I dream about him. He doesn't talk. He just looks at me and smiles. That's his way of saying he's still with you." He smiled, sticky ice cream on his chin. "I think so too." Meanwhile, my parents kept trying. Barbara sent birthday cards addressed to Liam with crisp bills inside, and signed. Martin left a voicemail once that said, "We didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought we deserved a little consideration. If you ever want to fix this, the door's open." Fix what, exactly? They had broken something that had never been whole, and I had stopped bleeding from it. I never returned their calls. Some relationships die long before the people do. I had learned that the hard way. By summer, I had saved enough to take Liam on a short vacation, just the two of us. We visited a cabin near a lake Jason had always wanted to go to, but never got the chance. I found the email he'd sent me once with a subject line, "Future trip?" Liam spent the days fishing and skipping stones. At night, we sat by the fire and talked about everything: school, dreams, Jason, fears, love. It was the most healing time we'd had. On our last night there, Liam handed me a folded piece of paper he'd been working on. It was a letter. "Dear Mom, I know this year has been hard for both of us, but you're doing such a good job. I'm not scared anymore, because I know we're okay. Daddy would be proud of you. I know I am. I love you, Liam." I cried as I held him close, the fire crackling beside us, the stars above us, and Jason's spirit everywhere in between. When we got home, I framed the letter and placed it on the nightstand next to Jason's. Two anchors. Two reminders of why I kept going. Of why I would never let bitterness define my story. A year passed. 12 months since the worst day of my life. I still remembered every detail of that phone call. The hospital hallway. The sterile smell of antiseptic. The doctor's voice saying, "We did everything we could." But now, when I closed my eyes, I saw something else. I saw Liam, smiling in the sun, his hair a little longer, his laugh a little louder. I saw myself, working, providing, moving forward. Not forgetting. Never forgetting. But healing. Not for others. For us. One morning in early fall, as I was packing Liam's lunch and helping him review his spelling words, he looked up and said, "Mom, I think I want to write a book about Dad one day." My hand paused on the bread knife. "You do?" He nodded.
Yeah.
So other kids who lose their dads don't feel so alone. I knelt beside him and hugged him close. "That's a beautiful idea. I want to tell them that it's okay to be sad," he continued, "but also that it gets better, like it did for us." He was right. It had gotten better. Harder, messier, more painful than I ever imagined, but better. At night, I often read before bed. Jason's photo sat on the nightstand, next to Liam's letter. Sometimes, I'd talk to Jason in whispers. Tell him what Liam said that day, what grades he got, how he refused to eat broccoli again, just like him. And every now and then, I'd dream of him. He never spoke in those dreams either, but his eyes always said enough. About 6 months after our cabin trip, I ran into my mother at the grocery store. We saw each other at the same time, me with a basket of milk and cereal, her with a cart full of overpriced produce. She hesitated, then approached. "Julia," she said with that same affected softness she always used when she wanted something. "Barbara," I replied. Her smile flickered. She noticed I didn't call her Mom. I hadn't in a long time. "You look well." "I am," I said. "Liam is too." She nodded slowly. "I sent him a birthday card." "I know." He threw it away. Her face fell. "You've taught him to hate us." "No," I said calmly. "I taught him to recognize who loves him for real." She opened her mouth, probably to apologize, or to justify, or to guilt trip. I cut her off. "You don't get to rewrite history. You didn't show up when we needed you. You didn't grieve with us. You showed up with expectations and calculations. That's not family. I miss him too, she whispered. But you didn't love him like I did, I said. And you sure as hell didn't love me like a daughter. Tears welled in her eyes. But I didn't care. For the first time, I didn't feel small in front of her. I felt untouchable. She stepped closer. Can we at least talk sometime?
No, I said.
We're done. I've moved on. I walked away.
She didn't follow.
Later that night, I told Liam about it. Did you forgive her? He asked. I looked him in the eyes.
No.
And I don't plan to. He nodded slowly. Me neither. Forgiveness is a beautiful thing, but only when it's deserved. My parents didn't make mistakes. They made choices. They chose silence. They chose money. They chose distance. They didn't just fail me. They failed Jason. They failed Liam. And when people show you what you mean to them, believe them the first time. On the anniversary of Jason's death, Liam and I visited the cemetery. We brought sunflowers, his favorite. Liam placed a small drawing on the headstone. It showed the three of us holding hands under a sky full of stars. I'll see you in my dreams, Liam whispered. We stood there for a long time, just being still, just remembering. And when we walked away, I didn't feel broken. I felt whole. Because in spite of everything, we had survived. Not because of the people who should have helped us, but because we helped each other. Because we chose love. Because Jason left us with something far greater than money or comfort. He left us with strength. And I used it to build a life he would be proud of. A life I'm proud of. I didn't forgive them. I didn't need to. Some chapters close without apologies. And sometimes, that's exactly how the story should end. If this touched your heart or made you think, don't forget to like the video to show your support. Comment below and share your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoy emotional and powerful stories like this one, subscribe to our channel so you never miss an upload. More true-to-life stories are on the way. Stay connected.